This summer, 48 countries are going to war. Not actual war, but close enough. Over 1 billion people will stop what they're doing and go silent and watch 22 men chase a ball around a grass field. Businesses will close, families will argue, grown adults will cry on live television. And if you have no idea why, that's exactly why you're watching this. Because in the next 10 minutes, you're going to understand the FIFA World Cup 2026, what it is, why it's the biggest sporting event on the planet, how it actually works, and why it matters so much to so many people. Let's go. First, some context. The World Cup doesn't happen every year. It happens once every 4 years. That's it. One shot, 4 years of qualifying, training, and pressure, all for a tournament that lasts about a month. Compare that to the NBA Finals or the Super Bowl. Those happen every single year. The World Cup, once a decade, twice if you're lucky enough to catch two. That's why players have broken down crying after losing. That's why coaches have resigned in shame. For a lot of these players, they only get 1 or 2 shots in their entire career. Now, here's the wild part about 2026 specifically. This isn't just a normal World Cup. This one is different. For the first time in history, the tournament is expanding from 32 teams to 48 teams. That means 16 more countries get a seat at the table. Countries that have never qualified in their history will now have a real shot. The whole map of the tournament changes. And the location? Also unprecedented. 3 countries are co-hosting it: the United States, Canada, and Mexico. That has never happened before. 16 host cities spread across 3 different nations. Games in New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, Miami, Toronto, Mexico City. The final will be played at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, the home stadium of the New York Giants. If you live in North America, this is the World Cup literally coming to your front door. Okay, so what even is the World Cup? Think of it like a giant tournament bracket, like March Madness, but for the whole planet. Every 4 years, countries, not clubs, not teams you pay to cheer for, actual countries, compete to decide who rules football. And football, by the way, is what the rest of the world calls soccer. Same sport. If you're American, just picture soccer, but with a planet-sized audience and existential national pride on the line. Here's something that puts it in perspective. The 2022 World Cup final, Argentina versus France, was watched by over 1.5 billion people simultaneously. The Super Bowl gets around 115 million. The World Cup final gets 10 times that number. 10 times! This is the biggest single sporting event that exists on Earth. So how does qualifying work? This is where it gets interesting. Before the World Cup even starts, countries around the world spend almost 3 years trying to qualify. Africa, Europe, South America, Asia, North and Central America. Each region holds its own qualifying competition. Only the best teams make it through. For 2026, 48 teams total will qualify. 16 slots go to Europe, 9 to Africa, 6 to South America, 8 to Asia, 6 to North and Central America and the Caribbean. And 2 spots are decided by playoff games between teams from different regions. Here's what makes qualifying devastating. Italy, one of the most storied football nations in history, 4-time World Cup winners, missed the 2022 tournament entirely. They lost a qualifying playoff. A country with over a century of football history knocked out before the main event even started. Their fans were gutted, and that was that. 4 more years to wait. Now let's talk about what actually happens once the tournament begins. It starts with what's called the group stage. The 48 teams are split into 12 groups of 4 teams each. Every team plays the other 3 teams in their group. Win, you get 3 points. Draw, meaning the game ends with equal goals. You get 1 point. Lose, you get nothing. At the end of the group stage, the top 2 teams from each group automatically advance. Plus, 8 additional third-place teams also move on. That takes us from 48 teams down to 32 teams. Then, the knockout rounds start. This is where it gets brutal. Knockout football is exactly what it sounds like. You lose, you go home. No second chances. No best of 3. 1 game, done. 32 teams become 16. 16 become 8, then 4. Then the final 2 play for the trophy. 1 game. Winner takes everything. And about that trophy, the FIFA World Cup trophy is solid 18-karat gold. It weighs about 6.1 kilograms. It depicts 2 human figures holding up the globe. But here's something most people don't realize. The team that wins doesn't actually get to keep it. They receive a gold-plated replica. The real trophy goes back to FIFA. The winning country gets to put their name engraved on the base, and that's it. But for a lot of these players, that trophy is the single greatest thing they could ever achieve. More valuable than any club championship, any personal award, any amount of money. Lionel Messi, widely considered the greatest player in history, had won every major trophy in club football. He'd won individual awards more times than anyone else. But for years, people kept saying he hadn't won the World Cup. That one thing followed him his entire career. When Argentina won in 2022, Messi fell to the ground and wept. That's what the World Cup means. Let's talk about the teams to watch in 2026. Because this tournament might be one of the most open in decades. France is the defending champion. They have arguably the most talented squad on paper. Kylian Mbappe, the man who scored a hat-trick in the final against Argentina, is their talisman. He's 27 years old in 2026, in his absolute prime. Brazil is always dangerous. 5 World Cup titles, the most of any country. They haven't won since 2002, which, by their own standards, feels like a drought. England, always the nearly team. They've been building something that looks genuinely dangerous. Their fans have been waiting since 1966. That's 60 years. Germany, 4 titles. Historically, one of the most consistent performers in tournament history. And then there's the United States. Here's why that matters specifically for 2026. The US is co-hosting this tournament, playing in front of their home crowd with an incredibly young, fast, technically skilled squad. Players like Christian Pulisic have been building toward exactly this moment for years. Home advantage in football is real. And for a country that is only just beginning to truly fall in love with the sport, 2026 could be the moment everything shifts. One more thing you should understand, and this is the part that casual fans often miss. Football is low scoring, and that is a feature, not a bug. In a typical World Cup game, you might see 2 goals, sometimes 1, sometimes none. To people who grew up watching basketball or American football, that feels insane. How can a 0-0 game be exciting? But here's the thing, in football, every single chance feels massive. Every near miss creates tension. Every set piece, that's when the game is stopped and restarted from a dead ball, could change everything. A single moment of individual brilliance can decide a match that's been perfectly balanced for 89 minutes. And in knockout football, if the score is tied after 90 minutes, you go to extra time. And if it's still tied after that, penalty shootout. 5 players, 1 goalkeeper, 1 shot each from 12 yards. The entire tournament, months of preparation, national pride, decades of history, decided by a coin flip level moment of nerve and precision. Penalty shootouts have ended the dreams of entire nations. Coaches have lost their jobs over them. Players have never recovered emotionally. It is the most nerve-wracking thing in professional sport. Here's what you know now that you didn't 10 minutes ago. The World Cup 2026 is the biggest tournament in football history. 48 teams, 3 host countries, games across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. A final at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. It runs from June through July 2026. Teams fight through a group stage, then knockout rounds until one country lifts that gold trophy. France, Brazil, England, Germany, and the United States are all teams worth watching. And underneath all the tactic and the goals and the stats, what the World Cup really is the closest thing on Earth to the whole planet pausing and agreeing on one thing at the same time. Whatever happens this summer, it's going to be unforgettable. If this breakdown helped you actually understand what you're about to watch, subscribe.